Namaste. Welcome to today's live stream. Today we'll talk about state of consciousness, चेतना की अवस्थाएं, हिंदू धर्म ग्रंथों के अनोखे रहस्य। क्या आपने कभी सोचा है कि हमारे प्राचीन ग्रंथ हमारे मन के रहस्यों को कैसे उजागर करते हैं? चलिए, हिंदू धर्म ग्रंथों की रहस्यमयी दुनिया में गोते लगाते हैं और जानते हैं चेतना की अनोखी अवस्थाओं के बारे में, जो हमारे आध्यात्मिक यात्रा को नया आयाम देती है। In this enlightening video, we delve deep into the concept of states of consciousness as described in various Hindu scriptures. From the Rig Veda to Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita, Hindu philosophy offers a rich tapestry of insights into the nature of human awareness and in transcendental aspects. Join us as we explore the four states of consciousness: Jagrat, waking; Swapna, dreaming; Sushupti, deep sleep; and Turiya, pure consciousness. Today, we'll talk about how these states are intertwined with our spiritual and daily lives, meditative practices and rituals that elevate our state of consciousness, stories and analogies from ancient texts that bring these concepts to life. Whether you're a spiritual seeker, a student of philosophy, or simply curious about the depths of human consciousness, this video provides a captivating and informative journey into the heart of Hindu wisdom. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more explorations into spiritual and philosophical topics. Now, today, let's invite our guest, Mr. Vikas Agarwal. Hello, Vikas ji.
Okay.
आपको थोड़ा विकास जी के बारे में बता दे. विकास जी grew up in a devout Hindu household in India. He completed his bachelor and master's in computer science and moved to the US to work at Microsoft. Dismissing the childhood beliefs about spirituality as immaturity and superstitions, he became a believer of materialism, that consciousness arises from matter. After learning about the two-slit experiment and some aspects of quantum physics, he started questioning his entire belief system. This led him to study Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita. His current belief system is not as rigid and solid as before, and he is currently on the path to continuous learning and realization of our true selves. As a part of this journey, he also wrote a book, Waiting to Breathe, which highlights his own personal journey from materialism to spirituality. Welcome, Vikas ji.
Thank you.
All right, तो आज हम बात करेंगे कॉन्शियसनेस के बारे में. उसके लिए मेरा सबसे पहला क्वेश्चन आपको वो था कि हाउ डू वी स्टार्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट इवन कॉन्शियसनेस, राइट? व्हाट इज कॉन्शियसनेस? हु आर वी?
The way, I mean, there's no definition for consciousness, to be honest. At least something I haven't come across. And something so basic and something so pervasive, and we don't have a definition for this, right? My definition is being aware, your awareness. And it's not a binary that, you're conscious or you're not conscious. I look at it as a spectrum. So if you look at animals, they have certain level of consciousness. And then you come to humans, which have sort of like a quantum leap of consciousness compared to animals. Animals, you can look at them as simple programs, or in the terms of video games, you can call them NPC, non-playing characters, right? Non-playing characters are like whenever they encounter something, they have a script which plays out. And animals, to a large extent, act just like the same, and their script is their instincts.
Right.
Humans, they can act in a very unpredictable manner, depending on their past state, right?
Yeah.
And even among humans, it's not everybody doesn't have the same level of consciousness. People have different level of awareness. There's a term in business which is called reading the room, right?
Yeah.
So that's awareness, contextual awareness, right? So the way I look at human consciousness is contextual awareness. And it depends on how do you define context. People who are struggling in life, I'm just giving an example. I don't mean to demean or belittle anybody. Somebody who is, say somebody in North Korea, every day their entire effort is focused towards surviving.
Very
Or
true.
somebody doing hard labor in India, a rickshaw puller, right? So their context is just surviving.
Mhm.
Then you come to somebody who is a businessman, right? Their context would be my business, my suppliers, my customers, and the money I'm getting. How do I invest it wisely,
Right.
right? So they have a bigger context. Then you can have a scholar, or a pandit, or in that case, their context is even bigger because they read a lot more history and they see where they fit in the larger context. And then you can talk about realized beings,
Mm.
say Buddha, Jesus, Ramana Maharshi.
Mm.
They have contextual awareness of the whole universe.
Okay.
So this is sort of like a long response to what is consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is still hard to define, I think, for everyone what exactly is consciousness. जैसे मैं सोचती थी बचपन से कि I think मुझे ऐसा लगता था कि humans जो है उनको जैसे I think in one of our live streams we have asked this question, right? We've talked about it कि who am I exactly? Am I my body? Am I, like मेरा आइडेंटिटी क्या है? जैसे बचपन में भी मुझे लगता था कि okay, I'm my mom and dad's child, and that is my identity, right? And then my granny pointed out how different identities are connected with us, like तुम किसी की बेटी हो, किसी की friend हो, किसी और का, you are just something to someone, and it's very very different. And that is where I started questioning, like मैं exactly क्या हूँ? I don't know. तो I think हमारे जो किताबें हैं, scriptures, ancient scripts, उसमें काफी चीजें दी है to identify about consciousness. And this is available to everyone, I think, no matter what state of awareness they are in. Anybody can read this book, anyone can get knowledge out of it and learn more about the states of consciousness. तो शायद मांडुक्य उपनिषद इसके बारे में बात करता है, am I right?
Yeah. Before we get to Mandukya, you touched upon something very interesting, and I want to give an analogy from computer science on this.
Yeah.
Like you said, when you were a little kid, I am daughter of,
Yeah.
this person and this person, right? And then as your identity developed more, you had friends, you became student, and then as you grew even more, you got married. I'm wife of somebody. You started working. I'm employee of this. So there, in object-oriented programming, you are a child class of all these abstract class, right? And what we don't realize, there is a base class which connects us all, which
Exactly.
connects us to trees, which connects us to planets, which connects us to sun, right? What is that base class? And that is the question that our ancestors seeked out to find. And not just in India, I think our ancestors are all cultures, right? This is the most fundamental question: who are we, right?
Funny you say this, Vikasji. I just went to Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles, and the show that they had is "Who Are We?" They
Yeah.
had it about like हम जैसे हम imagine कर सकते हैं कि we are thinking of, like, few years back we were thinking we are humans on Earth. Now we have explored space so much, and now we feel so insignificant कि हम लोग इतना छोटे हैं, बाहर की दुनिया इतनी ज्यादा बड़ी है कि you're still, I mean, humans are still in question of who we are, and we are constantly trying to seek that answer one way or the other.
See, everything that you're made of, your body's made of, was born 14 billion years ago. So if somebody were to ask you, how old are you, Shruti? You're not going to say I'm 28. I'm 14 billion years old,
Yeah.
right? Your blood is red. Why? Because it has iron in it. And where did this iron was forged? In the belly of a star.
Mhm.
So a star died so you could live. It's like, the story of Jesus, right? Jesus died so we could live.
Yeah.
Like a star died so we could all live.
Yeah. Very true. तो ये हम लोग कैसे कॉन्शियसनेस को समझने का ट्राई करें मांडुक्य उपनिषद या एनी अदर बुक बेसिकली?
Yeah, so Mandukya Upanishad actually explores this question, the question of consciousness, right? So, do you remember dreaming? Like, tell me a little bit about your dreaming, right? When you're dreaming, do you know you're dreaming?
No, actually, I'm not. It when I if I wake up from a deep dream, it actually feels like it was real. Like something
Yeah,
was happening just now.
just for a moment, and then you realize you gain
Yes,
awareness and say,
yeah,
"Oh, that was a dream."
yes.
Sometimes, so in my own experience, I knew I was dreaming many times, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes dream was so bad that, and I had a realization that I'm dreaming. I try to wake up. I wake up by effort for some reason, right?
Mm.
In fact, one time I was composing music in dream,
Mhm.
and then I knew I was dreaming, and it was so beautiful. I wanted to remember that. I woke up to remember that music,
Wow.
played in my mind multiple times.
Yeah.
So, this concept is called lucid dreaming, in a way that when you are dreaming and you know you're dreaming, and
Mm.
in those dreams, you can shape your dreams.
Mm.
But
Interesting.
coming back to Mandukya Upanishad, so when we're sleeping, it's called, um, and we're dreaming, it's called Swapna, right?
Mhm.
Our consciousness is bound by those dreams, and we are alive on those dreams. We're not aware of this waking
Yeah.
consciousness, right? We're not
Yeah.
aware of it.
Yeah. When we are dreaming, that feels real,
Yeah,
and when we are awake, this feels
yeah.
real.
So tell me, which
Yeah.
one is dream and which one is awake? How do we know?
I I don't have a good answer for that, but I have tried to think about this in the past. I feel like because this state of awakening is where everything is stable, like my home and the people around me and everything, then I feel like this is real because when I go to dream, it's like different worlds all the time. I don't go to the same world in the dream every time. So I want to believe that this is real.
But you woke up this morning.
Yeah.
How did you know? Like, whatever context you have now, how do you know it will be the same tomorrow?
I don't actually. It's a very
Right.
hard question to answer, which one is real.
So, like, I was having this conversation with a friend. When you are, um, when you're, imagine the creator created the universe just at this moment,
Mhm.
and whatever tools and evidence we have for universe being 14 billion years, the creator planted them. So we think it's 14 billion years old, and we have
Mm,
no way of finding out.
that is true.
So what we're getting at is that even the waking state, there is no way for us to know that it's itself is not a dream,
That's true.
right? So basically, that's a dreaming state, and this is a dreaming state, which is real. And that's a question Raja Janak asked, right? Is
Right.
that real or is this real? Right.
Mhm.
So now the third state. So there is four states of consciousness. One is swapna, dreaming, awake, what we call awake.
Yeah.
Right now that we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
Just a joke. How do we know that sleeping, dreaming is not real? Is because we don't have any podcast there.
Very true.
But
One quick thing I would like to say for our audience about Mandukya Upanishad at this point is something interesting that was stood out to me is the fact that मांडुक्य says कि जब आप स्वप्न के state में हैं तब भी आप ही होते हो. You don't see yourself as a lion or a tiger or someone else. आप फिर भी whenever you're dreaming you're still you. And that is something that stood out to me because I think it's one of those things कि जब तक कोई बोलता नहीं है हमें वो क्लिक नहीं होता है कि okay this is actually true. So
that's
that's
amazing. So
yeah.
one of the things I've been trying to do is to remember my dreams, to pay more
Mhm.
attention to my dreams, so that I can consciously practice lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
So I wake up in the morning and try to remember my dreams and write down.
Hmm.
One of the dreams I had last night was, I started working again at Microsoft, and my skip manager was my wife, which was kind of weird. And
Yeah.
I also noticed that the point that you just made is in every dream, I was me, right?
Yeah.
That sense of awareness, and then we'll get to what is that sense of awareness.
Yeah. Sure.
So we got dream, we got waking, then there is the third state, Sushupti,
Mhm.
where we have dreamless sleep.
Hmm.
So all our senses have come back and merged into the self. We have no aware. I mean, we are as good as dead for practical purposes. In that, if somebody died, people say they died in sleeping. Who knows, like when they died? It's like you died and never woke up. What kind of experience is that?
Yeah.
So, what Mandukya Upanishad says that is when you're one with the self. And by any chance, if you could wake up and experience that, it will be a pure blissful state.
Yeah.
This is what this is what unity looks like. This is what unity feels like.
Mhm.
Right? But in a way, all three are experiences, right?
Right.
There is a fourth state of consciousness, which is Turiya. Turiya means fourth, which is
Mhm.
the base of all these three, right? And that state is the base class. That state is the I am, the awareness of I am, right?
Mhm.
Not in an egoist sense, not in a sense that I am somebody's son, I'm somebody's father, I'm somebody's husband or employee. Beyond that,
Yeah.
it's
I'm existing.
yeah, we cannot describe it. It's not describable, right?
Right.
But that's pure Chetana, that's pure consciousness, the base class, class zero. And at that, when you are merged in that state, then you feel unity with, you know, everything, So
That's
those
a
are the
good.
four things. Yeah.
Mhm. I have a question here. तो जैसे आपने कहा कि we are awakened state, we all are there, everybody can experience it. Dreams also, I think most people experience it. When I was a kid, I couldn't remember my dreams. I used to be like up and I used to be annoyed, and
I'll
then
tell
my
you one
grand.
thing. I'm gonna interrupt. Like when you're dreaming, do you remember your day? You don't. You don't have
Yeah,
memory of your waking state.
no, there is
So
no memory.
there is no asymmetry here. It's completely symmetrical, right?
Right, right. तो मैं जब छोटी थी और मैं बचपन में एकदम से उठ जाती थी, आई आई रिमेंबर बीइंग अनॉयड, बट आई डिडंट यूज्ड टू रिमेंबर व्हाट द ड्रीम वाज। मुझे याद नहीं होता था कि मेरा सपना क्या था जिसकी वजह से मैं अनॉयड उठी हूँ। एंड देन एज आई ग्रू अप, आई कुड रिमेंबर माय ड्रीम्स एज वेल। और फिर थर्ड आपने जैसे कहा सुषुप्ति है, वहां पे उसको प्रज्ञा स्टेट भी बोलते हैं, बाय द वे दैट्स अ ब्यूटीफुल वर्ड। आई हैड अ फ्रेंड कॉल्ड प्रज्ञा एंड आई वाज नॉट अवेयर दैट इज व्हाट इट मीन्स।
Is she aware though?
आई नीड टू
How
आस्क हर।
beautiful her name is.
Yeah. So it's called Pradnya state, which you said is dreamless. I think Mandukya also talks about this. Ke, in that state, in that dreamless state, you don't exist for the world, and the world doesn't exist for you. And that is how that state is defined. मुझे ऐसे लगता है ये भी कहा है मांडुक्य में कि जो लोग वो स्टेट में जाके आ सकते हैं, आई थिंक दे आर ऑलरेडी पीसफुल बिकॉज इट्स स्लाइटली क्लोजर टू द फोर्थ स्टेट ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस, जो थर्ड है। एंड आई थिंक पीपल हु स्ट्रगल विद स्लीप ऑल्सो फील दैट कि जब वो उठे तब वो फ्रेश नहीं है, उनको they don't feel like enthusiastic through the day, whereas if you had that dreamless state, if you went into that deep sleep and you woke up, I think you're already very fresh. जो भी कल का था वो, you've forgotten it, you've started a new day. That's very blissful state to already be in, to touch it and come back. एंड ये फोर्थ स्टेट है, जैसे ये तीन स्टेट है, आई थिंक मोस्ट पीपल वुड बी अवेयर ऑफ दीज थ्री स्टेट्स, द फर्स्ट थ्री दैट वी टॉक्ड अबाउट, कि देयर इज अवेकनिंग, देयर इज स्वप्ना एंड देन देयर इज डीप स्लीप। बट ये फोर्थ जो तुरिया है, ये कैसे, लाइक हाउ डज समवन get to experience it? Is it through meditation?
So you don't experience Turiya, right? Like Turiya is the base for all the consciousness,
Okay.
right? At least that's how I understood it. Uh, so actually, Mandukya Upanishad not just describes different states of consciousness; it also talks about how to achieve, experience the three, right? And
Mm.
that way is the word Om.
Yes.
So meditate on Om, and you know, just close your eyes, sit somewhere peacefully,
Yeah.
and just chant Om, Om, Om.
Yeah.
Just chant that. Even if you don't experience pradnya, you will feel very good.
या ये मुझे जब भी मैंने ध्यान करने का ट्राई किया है, देयर वाज अ पॉइंट वेयर I started my meditation and I was like, I didn't have any disturbance, right? I was at a very peaceful place. There was no phone range, which helped because the phone would not ring, right? And when I opened my eyes, it felt so different. And when I checked the time, it had been 1.5 hours, and it felt like 5 minutes. It felt like 5 minutes, honestly. तो मुझे
Yeah,
वो
so probably you already experienced pradnya.
I don't know. I think that
I
state of
mean, you didn't have a sense of time, right?
no, I
Because
didn't.
it's transcendental,
Yeah, I
right?
was very surprised. Okay, it had been 1.5 hours. Of course, I was thinking about so many things in my meditation. It is not like I was listening to मैं कोई मतलब भजन कीर्तन या कोई भी भगवान का नहीं सुन रही थी. I had just closed my eyes and I was thinking about everything, right? Everything that was going around in general. I was very amazed as well when I was meditating how quickly my mind is shifting through different things.
Yeah.
And then there was a point where everything felt okay. Like I think it was a point where I had thought about everything and I was okay with everything. And that's the point when I stopped chanting Om and I opened my eyes and it had been 1.5 hours, which
Yeah.
was crazy because I did not expect it to be that long at all.
We can take a detour and talk a little bit about meditation, right?
Yeah.
So meditation is not about clearing your mind. Like, you say clear your mind. You
Yeah.
cannot clear your mind.
You can.
You, especially if somebody tells you to clear your mind, you cannot clear your mind.
Yeah, it's like
So,
putting that point and then you're like not able to exactly do that.
yeah.
That
So the point of meditation is to raise your consciousness, to be aware of what your mind is thinking. Thoughts come and they're coming without awareness, right? And then there's a meditation bell rings, or you do Om, you breathe in, and then you realize you become more aware of your thought. Oh, I'm thinking about, this issue at work. Let that go.
yeah.
And then for 1 second, maybe you don't have a thought, and then another thought will rise. Oh, tomorrow I should buy some baklava for the dinner party,
Mm.
right? So it's this sort of struggle. I don't want to use the word struggle. It's like this duel or dance with your thoughts
Yeah.
that they're coming and they're going, they're coming and they're going. And then you are able to sort of pulse check, okay, this is the thought I'm thinking. This thought is being thought. If you want to use it, you become an observer. This thought has come. It's time for this thought to go. Let this thought go, right? So what you're doing is that you're not a participant in the dream, you're an observer. The whole
Right.
purpose of meditation, I shouldn't say whole, but the purpose I use is to become the observer.
Hmm.
So the book I'm reading right now is called Reality Transurfing by Vadim Zeland. It's a very big book. And he actually has a model which is very similar to Mandukya. By the way, we'll also get to the autobiography of a yogi, where Sri Yukteswar Giri, when he resurrects, he
Mhm.
also talks about different planes of existence, which kind of map to these consciousness levels.
Okay.
So, coming back to reality transurfing, what Vadim talks about is that, we talked about animals who are NPC just going through the script. Actually, that's how most of the humans go through their lives, right? We are just sleeping in a matrix, right?
Hmm.
Now that sounds fancy. I'm trying to make a reference to a movie. Actually, Matrix, everything in the Matrix was actually is true. We
Yeah.
are in a matrix, and every single minute we are bombarded by the matrix to capture our consciousness. That's the prize. Your consciousness is the prize that everybody's after. Are you going to let your consciousness be stolen, or do you want to bring it back? And I think that's the purpose of humanity. That's the purpose of human, to gain back your consciousness from everybody who's trying to capture it. Like your friends and your family, there might be some drama. They're throwing tantrums to get your attention. Everybody's trying to get your attention, right? At work, your colleagues, your manager, your reports, everybody wants a piece of your consciousness, right? Like in TV, they will make ads to capture consciousness. The drama, the music, even TikTok and YouTube Shorts, everybody wants to capture your attention, right? Because it is precious. So guard it like the most precious thing in the world.
True.
So coming back, so what Vadim talks about is we're sleeping. Why are we sleeping? Because everybody wants our consciousness, and if we don't own our consciousness, we're as good as asleep.
True.
Right? Asleep, you are like somebody, an actor in a play, right? What he's saying is that come back from that and come to the audience hall, right? Observe the drama. Play your part, but not as a participant, but as an observer. And this is what meditation allows us to do, is to be an observer.
I
right?
see.
Because when you're an observer, things don't bother you as much. Things don't irritate you. Nobody can fool you to capture your consciousness. You don't click on clickbait articles. You say, this is sansar, right? This is the Maya, right? I don't need to click on it. I don't want to give them my consciousness.
Yeah.
So I think we took a detour about protecting your consciousness.
I like your point of observing though, because I don't remember where I read this, but it's coming back to me, and it's very simple example of how that observation happens for oneself. So there is this story about a group of people crossing a river, and they decide that, okay, once we cross the river, we'll count that everyone is there, and so they cross the river. And then so when a rishi passes by, they ask him like how many people we are, and he says like 9 or something like that. And when they cross the river, they try to count, and they are counting the other 8, and then they are freaking out that we are
missing.
हमने किसी को खो दिया है, क्योंकि 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and then another person counts, okay, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and they are really afraid. The moral of that story was that you didn't count yourself, you are the one observing those 8. And at some point it comes together, because there is always this there is some awareness in me, which people call it consciousness, because I feel like they call this moral voice that is in your head, that if I'm doing something that I know is not right, then that voice is already telling me, right, that hey, that's not okay to do. And there are times when while I was growing up, I have done it anyway, even that voice told me, I still did it. Versus there is point where I started thinking, okay, I have something that's telling me this is not okay, and I'm still doing it, so let me not. And I think that voice, it's kind of what you just said, it's observing you basically. Even though it is you, it is still observing you. And I think that's exactly what we talk about when we say that we want to achieve that level, is very aware.
On the river crossing, I'll tell you a nice Zen story, a very short story. There were 2 monks, they were going, and they were at the bank of the river, and there's a lady, she wants to cross the river, but she can't. So she asked the monks, can you help me cross the river? So one of the monk lifts the woman, and they both cross the river. And, he drops the woman at the other side of the river, and then they walk off. And the monk who picked the woman, he notices that the other monk is not happy with him. They've been walking. And then after a while, he says, is something bothering you, brother? He says, you're a monk. How could you lift that lady and pick her up? He says, brother, I left the lady at the river bank, but apparently you're still carrying her.
Yeah, that is so true.
So from Buddhism, one of the stories that really led me on the path of Dharma was the enlightenment of Gautam Buddha. I shouldn't say enlightenment, but awakening of Gautam. Siddhartha Gautam became Buddha. So in Buddhist texts, there are 4 stages of dhyan that Buddha went through.
Okay.
And, the hair on my neck still, rise whenever I think about it even, right? So I would recommend everybody to read it. It's in the Dhammapada book by Eknath Eshwaran. So he talks about different states, like the same 4 things we talked about. Buddha experienced them. And in Buddhist text, they have very detailed explanation of what Buddha felt.
Mm.
So I would really in fact, Zen actually comes from the word, Zen is Japanese. It comes from Chan, Chinese. Chan comes from Dhyan.
Oh.
So there was a Indian monk who went to China to teach Buddhism, and he was teaching Dhyan, and Chinese converted to Chan, and Chan became Zen. So
Interesting. Yeah. So I know that we talked about, Mandukya Upanishad talking 4 levels of consciousness. Are there other ancient Indian scripts which talk about more levels of consciousness, or this is like a common idea across scriptures?
yeah, so not just, I haven't, okay, so there is a map of consciousness that David Hawkins talked about, and I can find that. But really, what David Hawkins is talking about is waking consciousness, right? Those maps of consciousness. But the model of consciousness, based on my studies, has been pretty consistent, not just among Indians, Hindus, and Buddhists, but across other cultures and regions also, right? Like I talked about this guy, Vadim Zeland. So he's a quantum physicist. He's a Russian quantum physicist. Nobody knows who he is. His identity is a mystery. And he wrote this massive book, Reality Transurfing. And he goes about in a very detailed explanation about things. But eventually, when you listen to all of that, you imbibe it and you realize, okay, this guy is talking about Mandukya Upanishad. Right? Mandukya Upanishad is only 12 verses.
Yeah.
The other example I will give is Sri Yukteswar Giri. So Sri Yukteswar Giri was the teacher of Yogananda Paramahans.
Okay.
And when Yogananda went to Kumbh Mela, the Guru dropped his body. And Yogananda comes, he's so sad that, Guru dropped his body in my absence. I couldn't pay my last homage to the Guru. And then for some purpose, he goes to Mumbai and he's in a room and Lord Krishna appears to Yogananda. He makes a sign to him. He doesn't understand what Lord Krishna is trying to convey to him. And then the whole room is filled with light. And his Guru resurrects in his room.
Oh.
And he goes to hug his Guru to see, is it real? And his Guru is in flesh and blood right in front of him. And he asks, are you for real? He said, yes. I have created this flesh and bone body from the astral plane. So in Hindi, it's called Hiranyalok.
Okay.
Then Guru explains Yoganand the different planes of existence. The plane we live at is gross plane, right? Stool, stool, like,
Yeah.
flesh and bones, The second one is astral plane, Sukshmalok, or Hiranyalok, where things are made of light and people can just wish things to materialize. But people, they are still not free from karma.
Oh.
They are born and reborn on astral plane to pay off their astral karma. Right?
I see.
And then beyond, once they've paid off their astral karma plane, they are born at causal plane. And they pay off their causal plane. I don't know the name in Hindi for causal plane.
Yeah. Let's just call it third plane.
Yes, third plane. And they pay off their karma there. once they've paid off their karma, they get moksha, no more life and birth.
Birth. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think it also aligns with something I read in Mandukya, which talks about, all of us are eventually one. We are just one. There is like when we reach Pradnya state, or when we reach Turiya state, there is no duality basically. There is
Yeah, I mean, so if you think about it, we don't even have to uh, try to speculate about it. It's a hard fact. Every part we talked about, right? Every particle in your body came from some star,
yeah, that's
right?
true.
All the stars, all the matter came
Right.
from a singularity, right?
Yeah.
Pure energy, right? Which we call Big Bang. So
Yeah.
from gross plane, gross point of view, from Sthul Sharir, we're all one,
Yeah.
right? And then let's talk about the consciousness level, right?
Mhm.
From that also we are one, because, you know, the illusion we are under is that this is me, everything under this, bag of leather is me,
Mhm.
everything beyond it is the world,
Hmm.
right? That's the very limited contextual consciousness we talked about, right? Consciousness in context,
Yeah.
right? So when people look at me versus the world, they have low consciousness level, right? And they look at the world as zero sum game in a
Hmm.
way. You're always looking for, what can I do for this bag of skin, right? How
Yeah.
can I aggrandize? How can I win? How can I have more from the world? Because when it's you against the world, you want more from the world. You want to conquer nature. You want more. You're chasing things, right? You're
Yeah.
exploiting, right? But when you have the bigger context, right, the base class, right, then you're able to take actions that serve the greater purpose, that serves the whole ecosystem. And that's what masters are. For
Yeah.
example, you know, Shri Peshwagiri, he was born on astral plane to help beings on astral plane to pay off their astral karma.
Hmm.
That's why all the avatars come to the world.
Right.
Avatar, Varaha Avatar, and Ram Avatar, Krishna Avatar, Parshuram,
Hmm.
uh, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Ram Krishna Paramhans, Baba Neem Karoli.
Yeah.
Like if you look at Baba Neem Karoli, he didn't want anything.
Yeah.
वो एक अपने तख्त पे लेटे रहते थे और एक कंबल था उनको people used to call him कंबल वाले बाबा
Yeah.
and all he did was just feed people, right? He didn't give any sermons. Somebody came to him, माँ इसे खाना खिलाओ. So some bhakt will bring some fruits, he'll just give fruits. That's all he did. When
Right.
Ramdas asked Baba Neem Karoli, Babaji, what should be my life's purpose? What should I do? Babaji said, serve people, feed people,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So,
That's very beautiful. It brings, so I consider my Nanima to be my first guru, because I feel like I was around her all the time, and most of my knowledge about ancient scriptures, Ramayana, Mahabharata, everything comes from her. Because she told me all those stories growing up. I remember one conversation where I was so mad at if something, I don't remember what I was mad at. लेकिन मैं बहुत गुस्सा थी, and my whole conversation that I was having, वो होने के बाद उनने सुन के लिया पूरा, और खाली मुझे बोला कि अभी के तुम्हारे ये सारा जो एक्सप्लेनेशन था, इसमें हाउ मेनी टाइम्स हैव यू सेड आई, मी, मुझे, वो एक बार सोच लो तुम. एंड देन when you're angry, but your conversation doesn't have, your explanation doesn't have those words in it, I will start taking you seriously. That is what she said to me. So it is so coming back to me, because I feel like that is what we are saying, right? We are saying that everything is, if everything is one, and we are thinking of this whole thing as uh, something that I want, this is my body, this is my life, this is so on, then it's a very different perspective than when you would have everything beyond.
like I'm gonna take a little detour, but that's a very beautiful story. And that's the beauty of femininity,
Mhm.
right? And what we're seeing, especially in Western society, okay, girls, you got to be boss. You need a corner office. You need that promotion, you know, raising kids and, serving people. That shouldn't be done, And I feel, the best example of women, apart from definitely, my mother is my wife. She is, she does her job, works at Microsoft, but at the same time, so nurturing and so wonderful, you know, you know,
So giving also, I feel like, because
yes, yes. What Matrix is trying to do is to, sort of program not just women, but everybody to be more selfish, just me against the world, like try to lower their level of consciousness. That's what Matrix is trying to do.
yeah.
That's why I don't watch much, streaming things or listen to music. Try to sort of plug off as much as possible from the Matrix. But
Yeah.
it's programming us.
Yeah, this is also, it also you talked about giving and nurturing, and I feel like that's the biggest thing you can do for someone is nurture them, to be ready for the generation after that, right? So I often say to people that my nani is living through me because everything that I am is her. I don't think I have my own.
Wow, you
Yeah,
literally are. You
yeah,
have her DNA. So what is your nani? Her body is basically five elements.
yeah,
That's not your nani, right?
yeah. That's true.
Because every year all your cells will be replaced,
Yeah,
right? From what you eat, what you drink, right? So
yeah.
what is the essence of your nani? Your essence of your nani is basically the information stored in our,
That she gave me.
right? So which is your DNA, which is her DNA, which she gave you,
Yeah,
and the learnings of her consciousness, which she gave you.
yeah. Very true. Very
So it's not figuratively that she's living through you. She's literally living through you.
giving to me. Yeah. And I also feel like the about nurturing part, I feel like when I had another conversation with my father when I visited an orphanage as a part of as a part of some tour. I don't remember whether it was school or something else. And I was after my dad saying, why don't you donate money to them? We can help them, and you can write a check and you have so much and so on. And my nani at that point also said another very important thing. She said, you can only give what you have. You don't have your father's money right now, but you have your time and you have your effort. So why
Yeah.
don't you go and teach them? If you're interested in helping them, why not just go and help them actually in person? Why ask for money to your
Yeah.
father?
That's virtue signaling, right? That's what we do in
Yeah,
the society, right?
I
Like
think
I
that,
don't want to sacrifice myself,
yeah,
but I
so
want somebody else to sacrifice for those poor people.
yeah, very true. And she said the same thing to my brother because when my brother was asking for money, because he cared a lot about forts in Pune. So she said, why don't you go and clean them when you are hiking there and you're trekking with your
Yeah.
friends? Why don't you go and clean it? And that's part of Shramadan, right? She talked about that concept a lot, that you donate your effort, you donate your time. And that is also a huge deal. And I think it shaped me a lot because I taught at that orphanage for a while, and it gave me a different kind of satisfaction that I've never experienced ever.
So
The,
Shruti, maybe the reason you're on the path of dharma is because of your nani.
yeah, I am. I owe everything to her, like I say.
Yeah.
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 So
See, like Shramdan is actually even like I don't consider, giving money. I mean, it is something, right?
yeah.
But giving your fruit of your labor and versus giving your actual labor versus giving your consciousness, right? The three level of
Agree.
givings,
Yeah.
right? And so, you could do something, you know,
Yeah.
but do something that comes out of your own consciousness, like the money you earn.
Hmm.
How do you earn that money? You are renting out your consciousness to your employer,
Hmm.
and they give you money for that,
Very true.
right? So it
Yes.
is actually coming from your consciousness. You're giving fruits of your consciousness, and then you can actually work there and use your brain. And the third thing is You could use your brain into solving problems for them, right?
Yeah.
You could actually rent your brain to them. And
Yeah.
when we consider giving, giving is actually at least a fair deal,
Hmm.
right? Suppose you give something to me, you help me, right? It's not just that you have helped me, I have helped you.
Yes. Very
It's
true.
it's a trade. There is no selfless service,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Every service, in Hindus they say, अच्छे कर्म लगेंगे,
Hmm.
right? That's a way
Yes.
of encouraging people. But the real, when you help somebody, you feel good. That satisfaction is a huge reward,
Mm.
right? When somebody helps you, it feels good that your problem is gone, but you don't have that satisfaction that the other person has by helping you.
Yeah. Yeah, that is very true. And I think in a way we touch each other's lives as well when we help others. There's always that I can't really define it in words, but I think we, like you said, we both get, because it's more like in that journey, you end up learning so much more. Like in my journey of teaching at that orphanage, I ended up learning so much more myself that
Yeah.
I don't like it. Yes, it was for someone else, but it also benefited me like a lot more than what I would have ever imagined. All right, we did take a little bit of detour, but I wanted to
Yeah.
come back to Mandukya again. And there's this question that's been that I have been having is Mandukya talks about Atman, right? That is the supreme self, that is all of us basically. And what is the role of that Atman to identify those four states of consciousness that we talked about? Or it's not really related in that sense.
What is the role of self?
Or Atman to realize those states of consciousness and
So the thing with about self is that, you know, it's beyond is and isn't. It's beyond time, space. We cannot even think it. We cannot even imagine it. Um, I'm not, I'm not learned enough or realized enough to give that answer. Actually,
okay. Yeah.
Alan Watts talks about it. Is that you think of self as vast, you know, empty space or whatever. Any idea about self are self-defeating. He
Hmm.
says, just as finger cannot touch its fingertip, it only finds air. Just that thinking cannot think beyond thought,
Hmm.
right? Because self is beyond your thinking.
Yeah.
So it's incomprehensible, indescribable to us. And
Yeah.
there are some lucky ones who can, realize it, you can feel it. They
Yeah.
cannot describe it because language cannot capture it, thoughts
Hmm.
cannot capture it.
Right.
So I I can't answer that question.
No, I understand, because I think Mandukya talks about how complicated it is to even define Atman. Is I think one example given in the book that I read was, can you imagine yourself to be in past, present, future at the same time? It's unfathomable basically, because that's not something that even human
Yeah.
mind start to imagine, right?
You touched upon something very interesting.
Hmm.
In there's a mantra called
Hmm.
Shiv Sankalp Sutra,
Hmm.
right? And it is so beautiful. It is so beautiful. Panditji has put it here. Yad Jagrata Durmudaitis Devam. So it talks about consciousness. It goes all over the places and then eventually comes back in the self.
Yeah.
And there's another verse in it which talks about the eternal memory of all those who had been, are, and will be.
Mm.
So it talks about that all the time exists all the time,
Yeah, it's very hard to imagine that.
right? But you know what? We have a theory in physics which says that
Huh.
arrow of time is an illusion, right?
So
So
the,
you've
the
got,
time being unidirectional is an illusion?
yes, because all time exists all the time.
Okay, that's very hard.
If it's a four-dimensional space-time, right?
Right.
Then there's a dimension, space dimension. I mean, you can see, in relativity experience, you want to go to future, you want to travel to future, You go to a black hole and come back. Remember the movie Interstellar? They went to that water planet.
Yeah.
Each minute there was equivalent to 7 hours or something. Or so when they come back, everybody's so old,
Yeah.
right? And the funny thing is that even Vadim Zeland talks about it in reality transurfing.
Mhm.
So, but he is, like a modern being. So he explains things in a way that are more relatable to modern person.
Mhm.
So he says that the time is like a roll of film.
Mhm.
It exists all the time. What we're doing is that looking at it frame by frame by frame, right? So we get an illusion things are happening, events are happening,
Yeah.
but all exist at the same time. So it's a movie that's already been created and it's being replayed in our minds, in our
Mm.
consciousness. And if you realize self, like our ancestors did, like beings have done, like they talked about Baba Neem Karoli, that he knew the future. And
Mm.
he knew everything. That's what they said. He knew everything. He knew about all the past. He knew about all the future.
Mhm.
So for the realized masters, it's not a frame by frame. It's the whole film.
Right. Wow, that's that would be very interesting if you're able to achieve something like that. It sounds amazing. But yeah, I know that there is a very long journey to be able to get there. One thing that
Very long
Upanishad,
journey, not just in this lifetime,
I know it's
maybe
like thousands of life.
thousands or millions of lifetimes.
Yeah, very true.
But
And
everybody will get there.
yeah, I think that's the eventual goal, right? Everyone is going through their circles of lives and deaths, and they are trying to achieve that level of consciousness to be able to go towards moksha. That is exactly what we talked
So
about.
I want to talk a little bit about autobiography of a yogi again.
Mhm.
So Steve Jobs was actually an atheist. He didn't believe in God, right?
Mhm.
And he was not even overtly spiritual. He went to India to meet Baba Neem Karoli. There was no internet, and when he reached there, he found out that Baba had died years ago.
Mm.
And he used to walk bare feet to the Krishna temple for prasadam because that's the only way for him to eat food,
Mhm.
right? So Krishna fed him prasadam, and he only had one book on his iPad. That was Autobiography of a Yogi. So
Mhm.
how come Steve Jobs, who is a materialist, I mean, apparently materialist, we don't know,
Mhm.
and who was an atheist, read that book, which is drenched in God's love. This book, it's like if you squeeze it, it's just, you will fill buckets and buckets of God's love. You read it and it just melts your heart. Why would he, Steve Jobs, read? I mean, to be honest, like as a materialist, I tried to read the book many times and I discarded it. Like, this is utter garbage, right?
Yeah.
How can people fly? And how can yogis perform these miracles? If India had such miraculous yogi, why didn't they kick British out?
Yeah.
Those were the sort of like the naive rationalist question I used to ask in my
Yeah.
own ignorance. And once I sort of got on the path of Dharma, then I read it. I read it actually last year in January.
Mhm.
And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. You know, why am I talking about it? So, because I think that Steve Jobs felt what I felt reading that book, right? And what is that feeling? So, in the chapter that we talked about when Yukteswar comes back, he says that he describes, astral plane and causal plane. Then he talks about you get connection to those planes through different levels of consciousness.
Oh wow.
So what he says is when you are in deep meditation, or which is Raj Yoga, meditation is Raj Yoga, right?
Mm.
Or you are lean in bhakti, you're completely immersed in love of God. you know have you, I don't know, you can also get it through music, right? You're listening to music, classical music or any kind of music, not like pop music, Taylor Swift or 50 cents, etc., but like divine music, you know you get so immersed that you don't know what's going on around you. So your consciousness level is raised and you get connected to these planes. The next thing he talks about is our brain doesn't create anything. It's not a creator, it's a receiver. Receive inspiration, knowledge, wisdom from these planes, right?
Interesting.
Now, Steve Jobs, and reading that book, I felt connection to these higher planes. And that's how God was able to have me scribe my book.
Yeah.
And I've repeatedly talked about the last 3 or 4 chapters that they're immersed in the love of God. I don't even remember writing them. And had I not read Autobiography of a Yogi, I don't think that book will come into being.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, the book connected me to the higher level of consciousness, to higher planes, and inspired me to write it. Similarly, it inspired Steve Jobs to create all these beautiful products that we use today that change the whole world.
Very true.
And another great example is Srinivasa Ramanujan. He didn't have any mathematical training. He just did. People say, okay, he was self-taught. He did it all by himself. But if you ask Ramanujan, hey, are you self-taught? Did you do it by yourself? He would say, no. A Devi, Namagiri Devi, comes in my dreams and then gives me these equations, because he was writing equations which were incomprehensible for mathematicians at that time. And in fact, many of them are still incomprehensible to a lot of people. We're still trying to find proofs for those.
Wow.
He just took a notebook and he just wrote results
Down.
without any proof. And Hardy was surprised. How can any human do that? Right?
Yeah.
So people call Ramanujan genius. He was not genius because of his hardware, because of his CPU. He was genius because of his receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unexplainable to a rationalist point of view.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah, I think if someone says seeing is believing, or experiencing is believing, then I think it's very hard to convey these thoughts. But as you like you said, you had a journey, right? You went from being a materialistic to a spiritual journey yourself. So I think that's where I think it has to be a self-realization. I don't think
the
one
other
can
thing is that,
tell
like
you.
when I was materialist, there were things that are happening in my life sometimes which I thought, okay, these are just coincidences. But when I look back, like my life has been filled with miracles. And we can have another section about those miracles and the significance of them, but we have miracles in our lives every day,
All the time.
right? All the time.
Yeah.
But
We should be conscious enough to be able to see them.
yeah, and Vadim talks about it, is that when you increase your level of awareness, you see miracle in things. So the funny thing is, I was reading this chapter where he talks about you see miracles in things. You say you see double rainbow, you see pink twins. The next day I go to the gym, I met a twin girls working out together. I took a selfie with them and I showed them, hey, this is what I was reading, right?
Yeah.
So you could call it a coincidence, you could call it a miracle, but coincidence has to be extremely low probability. Like, what is a miracle anyways?
Yeah.
Very low miracle probability events taking place.
Yeah. That's very true. That's very true. Awesome. I think this was a great conversation, Vikasji. One last piece that I would like to touch for our audience or viewers, हमारे दर्शकों के लिए, I would like to say that now that you're aware of these levels of consciousness, I would highly recommend reading Mandukya Upanishad. It's 12 verses only, the shortest Upanishad. I think it is the shortest one.
5 minutes read.
Yeah. Also read Vikasji's book. It is very easy to follow through. I think he has explained everything in a very simple terms. So I think to get started, it is amazing. And also, I would like to say that the whole point of talking about levels of consciousness is is the fact that each and every one of us can meditate, and Om is the essence of everything, is what Mandukya says.
Like, so one thing is that, if you are Hindu or Indian, you can say Om.
Mhm.
If you have objection, I cannot say Om. My religion
Is something
prevents me
else.
from saying Om.
Mhm.
You can say Allah. You can say Jesus.
You can say
Just
anything.
say whatever you have huge devotion towards.
Mhm. And
But
it
if you
have
can
the
say
same.
Om, great. But you can use your own devotion. It's the sentiment. It's a devotion that counts.
Right. And it would have the same effect as Om.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would highly recommend all of our viewers, हमारे दर्शकों के लिए मैं बता दूं कि आप please try to have meditation in your day to day. Chant Om, chant anything like Vikas ji said, whatever is devotion for you, and it will literally change your life. It is a huge deal. I try to meditate only 3 minutes every day, and it absolutely changes my day when I do that. So if at all there's a day when I miss it, I really miss not doing that, because my day is very different than what it would be with meditation. So I would highly recommend everybody to meditate and say Om. Go ahead and read those books. Get yourself aware, get yourself cautious. Also read Vikasji's book. The link is right here. And thanks a ton for connecting with us today. हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. और ऐसे ही हम लोग और टॉपिक्स पे बात करते रहेंगे विकास जी के साथ, तो हमारे साथ जुड़े रहिए. एंड प्लीज like our videos, and share it with the friends and family that you are around. If you like something, definitely make sure that they also get to know about it. Please write to us in comments. We love to get back to your comments. And if everything goes awesome, please don't forget to hit that bell icon and subscribe with us, because we'll be having lots and lots of conversations like this going ahead, which will be super fun. And it's always fun when we have more people connecting with us, asking questions, getting their answers, or posing us with more questions. Everything is super fun. So thank you so much, and see you again.